My name is Emma Hayes. I'm 33 years old, and on the morning of my cousin Olivia's wedding, my own parents told me there wasn't a seat for me. My mother smiled as if she were doing me a favor. "I'm sorry, Emma," she said. Olivia's future mother-in-law invited 2 extra relatives. Someone had to give up a seat. I looked at the seating chart. My name was gone. My father straightened his tie without looking at me. "Don't make this about yourself," he said. "It's Olivia's day." Around us, guests pretended not to listen. The wedding planner stood frozen, clearly uncomfortable. I had spent 8 months planning every detail of this wedding. Every flower, every light, every menu, every guest room. Yet somehow, there wasn't a chair for me. I looked at Olivia. She seemed shocked. "Mom, Emma should stay," she whispered. My aunt quickly interrupted. "Honey, don't ruin your wedding arguing over something so small." My mother nodded. "Emma understands." No, I finally understood. For years, I believed staying quiet kept peace inside a family. In reality, silence only taught people they could keep hurting you. I smiled. "You're right," I said softly. "I understand." I stepped outside the ballroom before anyone noticed the tears forming in Olivia's eyes. The morning air was cool. Birds sang across the gardens I had spent 2 years restoring. I took out my phone. One name sat at the top of my contacts: Michael Brooks, General Manager, Willowbrook Estate. He answered immediately. "Good morning, Miss Hayes." I looked back through the glass doors. Inside, my family was laughing. They had no idea I was watching. "Good morning, Michael. Is everything ready?" "Yes, ma'am. We're just waiting for your signal." I smiled. "Good. Don't do anything yet, but stay close. I think today's wedding is about to become very interesting." "I understand," he replied calmly. I ended the call. No anger, no shouting, no revenge. Not yet. Because people who underestimate you usually create their own downfall. The funny thing is, my family believed Willowbrook Estate belonged to an investment company. That's what everyone believed. The truth was much simpler. 2 years earlier, I had quietly become its owner, and not a single member of my family knew, not even Olivia. As I slipped my phone back into my purse, the wedding planner hurried outside. "Emma?" she whispered nervously. "I'm so sorry." I smiled kindly. "It's not your fault." She hesitated. "Should I tell Mr. Brooks?" I looked toward the ballroom one last time. My mother had already taken my seat. She was laughing with guests as if nothing had happened. I took a slow breath. Then I answered, "Not yet. Let's give them a little more time to enjoy the party." I didn't go back inside.
Instead, I walked through the East Garden, the quietest part of Willowbrook Estate. The roses were finally in bloom. I'd chosen every variety myself during the restoration. Grandma used to say a beautiful garden never happened by accident. Neither did a successful life. My phone buzzed. It was Olivia. "Emma, where are you?" A second message followed. "Please don't leave." I stared at the screen for several seconds before replying. "I'm still here." Nothing more. A few moments later, Michael approached from the main building. Even in a black suit, he looked more like a retired military officer than a hotel manager. He stopped a respectful distance away. "Ms. Hayes, everything is ready?" "Yes." "And the ownership documents?" "They're secured in my office." I nodded. "Good." Michael hesitated. "I heard what happened." News traveled fast among the staff. "I'm sorry they treated you that way." I smiled faintly. "They've been treating me that way for years." He looked toward the ballroom. "The employees know who you are. They're waiting for instructions." I folded my arms. "Not yet. Today's about Olivia. I don't want to ruin her wedding." Michael gave a small nod. "I understand." Before he walked away, he quietly added, "For what it's worth. I've managed this estate for 12 years. I've met celebrities, politicians, billionaires, but no owner has ever cared about this place the way you do. His words stayed with me long after he disappeared inside. For a moment, I wondered if I was making the right choice. Maybe I should simply leave. Maybe keeping my secret was easier. Then I remembered something. 3 months earlier, my mother had invited herself to my apartment. She looked around my living room and smiled. "You've done well for yourself." Before I could thank her, she added, "Just don't forget where you came from." 10 minutes later, she asked if I could pay for Olivia's wedding flowers because family helps family. I agreed without hesitation. She never asked how much they cost. She never asked whether I could afford them. She simply expected me to say yes. And I always had. Until today, my thoughts were interrupted by applause coming from the ballroom. The ceremony was beginning. Guests were taking their seats. The seat that should have been mine was occupied by someone who had never even met the groom before this year. I took a slow breath. Then my phone rang again. This time, the caller ID made me stop walking. Attorney Daniel Foster, the lawyer who had handled the purchase of Willowbrook Estate. I answered immediately. "Emma." His voice sounded unusually serious. "I've just received an unexpected visitor." "Who?" "Your parents." My heart skipped a beat. "They're asking questions about the ownership of the estate." I frowned. "Why would they do that?" Daniel paused. Then he said something that changed everything. "They're trying to buy the property, without knowing it already belongs to you."
For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. They're trying to buy Willowbrook? Yes, Daniel replied. Your mother, father, and Aunt Rebecca came to my office last week. They said the family wanted to purchase the estate as a wedding gift for Olivia and her husband. I almost laughed. They've never had that kind of money. I know, Daniel said. That's why I found it strange. What did you tell them? I couldn't discuss ownership. Confidentiality agreement. I leaned against the stone railing overlooking the gardens. Did they make an offer? They did. How much? $2 million. I closed my eyes. Willowbrook Estate had recently been valued at nearly $28 million. Their offer wasn't just unrealistic, it was impossible. Daniel continued. Your aunt insisted the current owner would eventually sell. She sounded very confident. A cold feeling settled in my chest. Rebecca wasn't guessing. She believed something I didn't know. Emma, Daniel asked carefully, is there anything I should be aware of? I looked through the ballroom windows. My mother was smiling for photographs. Dad was shaking hands with guests. Aunt Rebecca looked happier than anyone in the room. No, I answered quietly. Not yet. After ending the call, I stood in silence. For years, I had hidden my success because I never wanted money to define my relationships. Now I wondered, had everyone else been making decisions based on money all along? Just then, Olivia appeared at the garden entrance. She had changed into her wedding gown. She looked beautiful, but her eyes were filled with worry. There you are. She hurried toward me, lifting the edge of her dress. I've been looking everywhere. I'm sorry. She shook her head. No, I'm the one who's sorry. She lowered her voice. I didn't know Mom and Aunt Rebecca were going to remove your seat. I swear, I believe you. Tears formed in her eyes. I told them to give you mine. They refused. For the first time that day, I saw genuine guilt on her face. I smiled gently. You should be getting married. Not worrying about me. She grabbed my hand. Then come inside. Please. Before I could answer, Aunt Rebecca's sharp voice echoed across the garden. Olivia! We're starting pictures! She walked toward us wearing a bright smile that disappeared the second she looked at me. There you are. Then she turned to Olivia. The photographer is waiting. Olivia didn't move. I'm talking to Emma. Rebecca sighed dramatically. Sweetheart, some people don't know when to step aside. She looked directly at me. I think Emma understands she's not part of today's priorities. This time, I didn't stay silent. I looked her straight in the eyes. You're right. She smiled proudly. I do understand. She had no idea. In less than an hour, everyone at Willowbrook would understand too. Olivia looked back and forth between us. Mom, please, Emma has done so much for this wedding. Aunt Rebecca forced a laugh. And we're grateful. But today isn't about vendors. The word hit me harder than I expected. Vendor. After everything I'd done, that was all she saw. Olivia frowned. Emma isn't a vendor. Rebecca gently took Olivia's arm. Sweetheart, your guests are waiting. We'll talk later. She led Olivia toward the ballroom. Before disappearing inside, Olivia looked back at me. I'm sorry. I smiled. Go get married. She nodded and walked away. I remained alone in the garden. For several minutes, all I heard was the fountain and distant music drifting through the open windows. Then Michael returned. The ceremony begins in 10 minutes. I checked my watch. So does the board meeting. He smiled slightly. Every quarter, the executive board of Willowbrook Estate held a scheduled meeting. Today's meeting happened to fall on the wedding day. Coincidence or perfect timing? The directors are waiting in the conference room, Michael said. They're ready whenever you are. I nodded. I'll be there in 5 minutes. As he walked away, another voice stopped me. Emma? I turned. It was Mrs. Evelyn Brooks, an elderly woman who had attended nearly every charity gala held at Willowbrook. She smiled warmly. I've been looking for you. It's wonderful to see you again. She hugged me gently. Then she noticed my expression. My dear, what happened? Before I could answer, my mother stepped outside with 2 guests. The moment she saw Mrs. Brooks, her face lit up. Oh, Mrs. Brooks! She hurried over. It's such an honor to have you here. Mrs. Brooks smiled politely. The honor is mine. My mother gestured toward me. I'm sorry you had to see our little family misunderstanding. Emma gets emotional sometimes. I didn't say a word. Mrs. Brooks looked at me, then back at my mother. Her smile disappeared. I've known Emma for years. I've never once seen her create unnecessary drama. An awkward silence followed. My mother laughed nervously. Well, families are complicated. Mrs. Brooks nodded. They certainly are. Then she said something my mother wasn't expecting. I hope you've thanked Emma properly. Mom blinked. For what? Mrs. Brooks looked genuinely surprised. For saving this estate. I thought everyone knew. The color slowly drained from my mother's face. What do you mean? Before Mrs. Brooks could answer, Michael appeared at the ballroom doors. He spoke calmly, but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Miss Hayes, the board of directors is ready. They're waiting for the owner's approval. My mother frowned. The owner? Michael looked directly at me. Yes, ma'am, the owner. For the first time that morning, my parents stopped smiling. The owner? My father repeated. Michael nodded respectfully. Yes, sir. The board of directors is waiting. Neither of my parents spoke. My Aunt Rebecca forced a laugh. There must be some misunderstanding. Michael didn't even look at her. There isn't. He turned back to me. Whenever you're ready, Miss Hayes. I smiled politely. I'll be there in a few minutes. Of course. He gave a slight nod and walked away. The silence he left behind was almost painful. My mother finally found her voice. Emma, why would he call you the owner? I shrugged. You've never really asked what I do. Dad frowned. We know you work in hospitality. I do. Rebecca crossed her arms. So you're managing this place now? Something like that. She looked relieved. Oh, for a second I thought. She stopped herself. Mrs. Brooks smiled knowingly, but said nothing. Just then, the wedding officiant stepped outside. We're ready to begin. Guests slowly moved toward the ceremony lawn. Olivia looked around, clearly searching for me. Our eyes met. She smiled hopefully. I smiled back. She still had no idea what was about to happen. As everyone walked toward the gardens, my mother quietly grabbed my arm. Emma, Whatever this is, don't embarrass the family. I gently removed her hand. I've spent my whole life protecting this family. Today, I'm simply protecting myself. Without waiting for a reply, I walked toward the executive conference room inside the manor. The heavy oak doors opened. 8 board members stood as I entered. "Good morning, Ms. Hayes." "Good morning." I took my seat at the head of the table. Michael placed a leather folder in front of me. "One item requires your immediate approval." I opened it. Inside was a request submitted only 3 days earlier. Special event ownership transfer authorization. Applicant, Rebecca Collins. My eyes narrowed. Attached was a handwritten note. "After the wedding, we'd like to discuss purchasing Willowbrook Estate directly from the current owner. Our family has always dreamed of keeping it in the family." I read the sentence twice, then a third time, keeping it in the family. They had no idea. It already was. I slowly closed the folder. Every board member watched me. Michael broke the silence. "Would you like us to decline the request immediately?" I looked through the conference room window toward the ceremony outside. My parents were taking their seats. The seat they had taken from me was clearly visible. I smiled. "Not yet." Michael raised an eyebrow. "What would you like to do instead?" I stood up. "Let's wait until the vows begin. Then I think it's time I introduce myself properly." The ceremony began beneath the old oak tree, overlooking Willowbrook's lake. Soft violin music filled the air as every guest rose to their feet. Olivia walked down the aisle, her eyes shining with tears. For a moment, I forgot everything else. She looked genuinely happy. She deserved that happiness. I remained inside the manor, watching through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Michael stood quietly beside me. "Still certain?" he asked. I nodded. "I'm not interrupting the ceremony. No one deserves that." He smiled. "I knew you'd say that." 20 minutes later, the officiant announced, "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Applause echoed across the gardens. The newlyweds kissed. Guests cheered. Champagne bottles were opened. Only then did I stand. "It's time." Michael pressed a button on his radio. "All department heads, please proceed with the owner's reception protocol." Within seconds, the entire estate staff moved into position. Servers paused. Security quietly took their assigned places. The event coordinator adjusted her earpiece. Everything was perfectly organized. Outside, guests followed Olivia and Ethan toward the reception hall. My mother was laughing again. Aunt Rebecca linked arms with several relatives as though nothing had happened. She had no idea every employee walking past her worked for me. As the reception doors opened, Michael stepped onto the small stage, usually reserved for speeches. He tapped the microphone once. The room slowly became silent. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before today's reception begins, Willowbrook Estate has one special announcement." My father frowned. He whispered something to my mother. Rebecca rolled her eyes. "What now?" she muttered. Michael continued. "As many of you know, Willowbrook recently completed one of the largest restorations in the state's history." Several guests nodded. It would not have been possible without the vision and commitment of one remarkable individual. A spotlight slowly illuminated the ballroom entrance. Every head turned, including my family's. Michael smiled. "Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the owner of Willowbrook Estate." He paused. "Miss Emma Hayes." The ballroom fell completely silent. I stepped through the doors. My heels echoed across the marble floor. Every employee stood straighter. Every manager smiled. And then, every member of the staff applauded. My mother's smile vanished. My father stared at me in disbelief. Aunt Rebecca whispered only 2 words. "No way." The applause lasted nearly 10 seconds. No one in my family moved. They simply stared. Michael walked toward me with a small leather folder in his hands. He stopped beside me and smiled. "Welcome home, Miss Hayes." "Thank you, Michael." He handed me the folder. Inside were the official ownership documents and the original restoration plans I had signed 2 years earlier. I closed it without looking. I already knew every page by heart. Michael turned back to the guests. For those who may not know, Miss Emma Hayes personally purchased Willowbrook Estate 2 years ago after leading its complete restoration. A quiet wave of whispers spread across the ballroom. The gardens, the ballroom, the guest suites, the chapel, every renovation you see today exists because of her vision. Guests began looking around the room with new eyes. Then they looked back at me. My father slowly stood. This can't be right, Michael answered calmly. It is, sir. Every legal document has been verified. My mother's face had turned completely pale. She looked at me as though she were seeing a stranger. You own this place? I nodded once. Yes. But you never told us. I smiled sadly. You never asked. The room became silent again. Aunt Rebecca suddenly forced a laugh. Oh, Emma, what a wonderful surprise! She hurried toward me with her arms open as if we had always been close. I knew you'd do amazing things. She tried to hug me. I politely stepped back. Her smile froze. Several guests noticed. So, she said awkwardly, why didn't you tell your family? I looked directly at her because I wanted people to value me, not my bank account. No one said a word. Then Olivia slowly walked toward me. She still wore her wedding dress. Tears filled her eyes. Emma, you paid for all of this? I smiled. It was my wedding gift. She covered her mouth. I thought you just negotiated a discount. I wanted today to be special. She suddenly hugged me tightly. I'm so sorry. So sorry. I hugged her back. It's not your fault. Behind us, my parents stood in complete silence. For the first time in years, they realized the daughter they had pushed aside had been holding everything together all along. But they still didn't know their biggest mistake wasn't taking my seat. It was what they had secretly planned to do after the wedding. And in less than 5 minutes, I was going to expose that plan in front of every guest. The ballroom was so quiet that I could hear the fountain outside. Every guest was looking at me, then at my parents, then back at me. Aunt Rebecca forced another smile. Emma, sweetheart, let's not make this awkward. I think we've all had an emotional morning. I looked at her without saying a word. She hated silence. It gave her nothing to control. Michael stepped beside me. Ms. Hayes, would you like me to bring the file? Yes. He returned moments later, carrying a sealed navy folder. He handed it to me. I opened it slowly. My family doesn't know this, I said, looking around the room. But 3 days ago, Willowbrook Estate received an official purchase request. My father frowned. A purchase request? I nodded. Someone wanted to buy this property. Guests exchanged curious glances. I removed a single document from the folder. The application listed one applicant. I turned toward my aunt, Rebecca Collins. Her confident smile disappeared instantly. I can explain. I hope you can, I replied calmly, because according to this document, you plan to purchase Willowbrook immediately after today's wedding. My mother looked at her sister in confusion. Rebecca, what is she talking about? Rebecca laughed nervously. It was just an idea. No, I said. It wasn't. I lifted another page. You also wrote that the current owner would surely accept the offer because the estate belongs with our family. The room fell silent again. Michael added quietly, the offer was $2 million. Several guests gasped. One man near the back whispered, this place is worth over $20 million. Rebecca's face turned bright red. She looked at my parents for help. None came. Instead, my father slowly turned toward her. You knew? Rebecca swallowed hard. I thought... You thought what? He interrupted. That you could buy Emma's property without telling her. She had no answer. Then Olivia stepped forward. She looked at her mother with tears in her eyes. Mom, were you really planning this? Rebecca couldn't meet her daughter's eyes. For the first time that day, she looked afraid. And I wasn't finished yet, because inside the folder, there was one more document. One that would reveal why Rebecca had been so desperate to own Willowbrook Estate. Rebecca stood frozen. The confidence she had carried all morning was gone. Every guest was waiting for her to say something. She couldn't. I reached into the folder and removed the final document. This, I said calmly, is the reason my aunt wanted Willowbrook Estate so badly. I handed a copy to Michael, who displayed it on the large screen behind the stage. The title appeared in bold letters. Commercial Development Proposal. A murmur spread through the ballroom. Rebecca's face lost what little color it had left. No, she whispered. Michael read the first page. Proposal submitted 6 weeks ago to Redwood Luxury Developments. He paused. The applicant proposed converting Willowbrook Estate into a luxury resort and private members club. Several guests gasped. One elderly couple looked around the ballroom in disbelief. The proposal continued. The historic chapel would be demolished to create additional parking. The rose gardens would be replaced with luxury villas. The century-old oak tree would be removed to expand the event lawn. The room erupted in whispers. Everyone knew that oak tree. Olivia had been married beneath it less than an hour earlier. Mrs. Brooks slowly stood. That tree is over 100 years old. Rebecca looked around desperately. It was only a proposal. It wasn't approved. I looked at her calmly. No, because I already owned the estate. Silence. She lowered her head. My father took a slow step backward. You were going to destroy this place. Rebecca wiped away a tear. I needed the money. My mother stared at her sister. You told me this wedding was about family. Rebecca finally broke. It was. I've been drowning in debt for years. The developers promised millions if I could convince the owner to sell. I thought if our family became emotionally attached to the estate, we'd have a better chance. No one spoke. Even Olivia looked stunned. So, Olivia whispered, you used my wedding? Rebecca couldn't answer. Olivia stepped back as though she'd been slapped. I can't believe you. The ballroom fell completely silent. I closed the folder. I didn't reveal this to humiliate anyone. I revealed it because the truth deserves a seat at the table. Then I looked at my parents. The same seat you decided I didn't deserve. Neither of them could meet my eyes. For the first time in their lives, they had nothing left to say. No one touched their food. The ballroom, which had been filled with music and laughter only minutes earlier, was completely silent. Rebecca remained standing beside her chair. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. Not because she had lost money, because she had lost the room. Olivia slowly removed the microphone from its stand. She looked at her mother. I spent my entire childhood believing family meant protecting each other. Her voice trembled. But today, I found out you were protecting yourself, Rebecca whispered. Olivia, I was trying to secure your future. Olivia shook her head. My future was never a luxury resort. It was supposed to be this. She pointed toward the ballroom, the flowers, the lake outside, and finally toward me. Emma gave me everything I dreamed of. You tried to sell it. Tears rolled down Rebecca's face. She quietly picked up her purse. I'm sorry. No one stopped her. She walked through the ballroom doors alone. The doors closed behind her. No one followed. Several minutes passed before my father finally stood. He walked toward me slowly, not as the man who had always expected respect, but as someone who knew he hadn't earned it. He stopped a few feet away. I'm ashamed. Those were the first honest words I'd heard from him in years. I spent so much time believing the loudest person in the room that I stopped seeing the quietest one. He looked around the estate. You built all of this, and I never even asked how your career was going. My mother began crying, not dramatically, not for attention, just quietly. She looked exhausted. I kept comparing you to everyone else. I celebrated other people's milestones while expecting you to quietly solve our problems. She wiped away another tear. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. I looked at both of them. For years, I had imagined this conversation. I thought it would feel like victory. Instead, it just felt peaceful. I forgive you, I said, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. They both nodded. I know. My life is different now. I won't go back to being the daughter who fixed everyone's problems while pretending not to have any of her own. Dad smiled sadly. You shouldn't. Olivia walked over with Ethan. She took my hands. I know I can never repay what you've done. You don't have to. It was my gift. She smiled through tears. Then promise me one thing. What? When we have children, I want them to know you as the aunt who taught us what real family looks like. For the first time all day, I laughed. I'd like that. As the evening continued, the music returned. Guests began talking again. Dinner was served. The celebration continued exactly as it should have. Only this time, I sat at the family table. Not because someone finally offered me a chair, because it had always been mine. 3 months later, I established the Willowbrook Heritage Foundation, ensuring the estate and its historic gardens could never be sold to developers. The century-old oak tree was placed under permanent historical protection. Every future wedding would take place beneath its branches. Olivia and Ethan volunteered to help with the foundation every summer. My father visited once a month. Sometimes we talked for hours. Sometimes we simply walked through the gardens in silence. Both were enough. As for my mother, she wrote me a handwritten letter every Sunday for almost a year, not asking for anything, not making excuses, just telling me about her week. Small things, consistent things, exactly what I had needed all along. People often ask me why I never told anyone I owned Willowbrook Estate. The answer is simple. Money reveals character, but power reveals truth. The moment my family believed I had nothing to offer, they showed me exactly how they saw me. And the moment they learned the truth, they wanted to change. Not because I had changed, because their illusion had. The venue was never the real inheritance. The lesson was, never let people decide your worth before they know your value.